What's up, everybody? Welcome to an all-quarterback edition of the Turn on the Jets podcast because we're kind of tired of talking about this entire 1-7 team and another 20-point loss to the Buffalo Bills, which is becoming an annual tradition for the Rex Ryan Jets. Third straight year they've lost to Buffalo by at least 19 points. I'm Joe Caporoso, joined by Connor Rogers tonight. Connor, how you doing?
Good, man. Hanging in there.
And we are just joined by Dalbin Osorio as well. Dio, how you doing?
What's up, boss man?
All right, so like I mentioned at the top, we're going to just focus on the quarterback position. We're going to talk Geno, we're going to talk Vick, we're going to talk the rest of this season at quarterback and options for 2015 at quarterback. Let's start with Geno Smith, benched this week after an absolutely atrocious first quarter. Connor and I were talking before we went live, and we were saying just from the first pass of the game when he overshot Decker by 5 yards, you could tell that he wasn't in the game, he wasn't prepared, whatever it was, but 3 interceptions, all in the first quarter, all out of his back of his own end zone. Just a disastrous performance and mind-boggling after how he played 10 days ago against New England.
Yeah.
After playing like that, I really feel like he left the coaching staff and the organization with no choice but to at least start Vick through the bye week because it's not fair to the other players on the team when your quarterback goes out and plays like that because you're not even giving everyone else a chance to compete. So Mike Vick will be under center this week against Kansas City and probably for the foreseeable future. With Geno Smith, again, this was a second-round pick. Jets didn't trade up for him. Don't think of him, for Jet fans, don't think of him as someone to compare to Mark Sanchez. I would say think of him as somebody to compare to Kellen Clemens, who was also a second-round pick. There's a big difference in the contract and the investment you put in a first-round pick and a second-round pick. And Geno was a guy all of us were, relatively confident going in to this season with because of how he finished the season, because of how he started the season, because of what we heard in the offseason. But now, you see a game like that this deep into his career when he has a decent amount of talent around him, which he does. I don't care what anybody says. Ivory, Morrow, Decker, Harvin is a very competent top four. And just doing more with less. What is this guy's future? I mean, I would guess that he will get a chance to start at some other point in this season. If the Jets are 3-10, I could see them letting him start the final 3 games or something like that. But I just can't see any way where this team will open camp in 2015 under the presumption that Geno Smith is their starting quarterback. I don't know if he'll be gone. I don't think he'll be. But at an absolute minimum, he'll be in a competition with other people who are brought in, whether that's a draft pick or a free agent. Connor, I'll start with you. Just on Geno now and going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's really disappointing to me because I watched him for 2 years at West Virginia really closely, and I really liked him. And, I mean, it's one of those times where I have to even just bite the bullet and admit I was probably wrong. It's a problem with you got a guy coming from a spread system in college, really shotgun-based, and just never made the transition to the NFL, hasn't shown really anything. They run a one-read offense because I don't think he can handle anything else. And now we're going into week 9, and every NFL defense knows that. And you watch, and he stares down one guy, and now it's like, hey, take the chance. And even when he takes the chance, he's not even putting the ball in the right place where only the receiver can get it. He'll throw it right into the defensive back's hands. I mean, it's gotten really bad really quick, and it's a lesson for me, just for the fans clamoring for guys like Mariota. It's the same thing with these spread offenses from college and making the transition. Now, I don't personally know either of them, so judging their IQ, work ethic, and everything else is a whole other ballpark. But the bottom line is the future with this team, it's not looking good because there's just no energy there right now with him, and that was as bad as I've seen a quarterback play since Mark Sanchez's rookie season on Sunday. And right now, you have to think the team is it's just a huge flux. It sets them years back. The best thing in the offseason direction you go is you find a stopgap guy. I don't know if that guy is going to be, maybe a riskier guy like Sam Bradford, another guy like Brian Hoyer, even a guy like Matt Moore if he's not back with Miami next year. Somebody that can come in, control the offense, and not turn the ball over 3 times in 8 minutes. I don't care if they're not a high-octane passing offense. This team can run the ball. They have guys that can catch the ball. Even if this guy's throwing for 200 yards a game, a touchdown, and no picks or 1 pick and no fumbles, they have to find a guy that could just control the clock and get back to playing defense while developing another guy, not drafting a guy and throwing him in when you never wanted to play him in the first place. That's not going to work. Whoever they do, if they do take a quarterback this year, he cannot start the season. That's just the worst possible case for the Jets.
Dalbin, your thoughts on Geno on Sunday and kind of going forward?
Well, one thing I disagree with Khan, and I don't normally do this, but I do disagree with Khan in the sense that he can't do it because he ran a pretty professional offense 10 days ago against New England, right? Like, it wasn't one read. It was, I mean, he got the ball out of his hands very quick. He was decisive with the ball. He was looking off safeties. Like, it's so weird to see a guy follow up his very best game with his very worst game. Like, that's weird to me. But he's a microcosm of the entire team. The entire team has been ridiculously inconsistent. I do think that who the quarterback is hinges on whoever the coach is. If Rex Ryan is back, you can't draft another rookie quarterback because Rex Ryan hasn't created an environment here in New York where a rookie quarterback can develop, right? So you do have to go get a guy like Matt Moore or a guy like Matt Schaub, or if Kyle Orton, was available, like a guy like that. Because that's the only way Rex is going to be successful here in New York. He's not going to be successful with a young guy. If Rex is gone, then you look into a guy like Mariota or Winston. I'm higher on Mariota than I am on Winston. But I think it all hinges on the quarterback. I do agree with you, Joe. I think that with Vick, one of the things with him is that last week he came in and he completed 50% of his passes. He had 3 turnovers, fumbled the ball, got bailed out on like another turnover as well. The same issues that he had before he displayed last week. But it may just be one of those things where if Rex comes back, then Mike Vick is your quarterback. It's like that just may be it. And so like I think it all hinges on the whoever the head coach is. But if it's a new coach, you have to draft a guy and sit him like Connor said. You draft a stopgap, sit him for a year, let him get ready. Because in an ideal situation, Mark Sanchez would have started last year, and then Geno would have taken over this year. In an ideal situation, Rex put him in the Snoopy Bowl. He hurt his shoulder, and then you had to start Geno. And he ended relatively well during the last 4 games of the season, but he just, from 10 days, from when he was at New England to how he played last Sunday, it was just ridiculous. And I've never seen a quarterback regress that much in 10 days.
Yeah, I mean, what sucks about this situation is that there's no right or good answer. Right? I think most people are, even no matter how you feel about Rex Ryan, I think most people are in agreement that if you do keep him, you're not going to give him another first or second round quarterback to develop, and certainly not expect him to play right away. There's just it just doesn't make any sense from what we've seen with Sanchez, from what we've seen with Geno, from the kind of team that Rex runs. Expecting a young quarterback to thrive in this environment, unless you had an Andrew Luck type prospect, which isn't is insane. Now, I don't know, to even venture a guess on who could replace Rex if Rex leaves, it's very premature. If you have a guy with an offensive background, a guy with some type of history of working with quarterbacks, then maybe you see how the board breaks. You consider a guy somewhat early, Again, obviously has to be expected. We spend all day getting bombed with tweets about Mariota and Winston. And I say, hey, man, if the Jets do my pipe dream and swing a trade for Harbaugh, sure, draft one of those guys. I think they have a chance to flourish here. But if you're bringing Rex back, absolutely not. You have to find a way to go get some type of veteran and then find a guy in the middle rounds or, sit him down and let him develop, because you cannot expect Rex to win with a young quarterback unless you have the best offensive line in the NFL, a 1,400-yard running back, at the time an athletic pass-catching tight end, and 3 really good receivers, which that's one in 2009 and 2010. Yeah. So aren't going to have all those things overnight, particularly on the offensive line. Their defense also is nowhere near as good as it was back in those early years. That's when they were the best defense in the NFL. Now they're a middle-of-the-pack defense who's on pace to force 6 turnovers this entire season, a number that more than anything is hard to wrap my head around, but I won't digress off the quarterback position. Before we get to outside options, let's just quickly hit on Vick. Vick, he is who he is at this point of his career. Right? He's going to turn the ball over. He's going to have some scrambles. He's going to have some exciting electric plays. From what he was pretty bad on Sunday. I mean, he was 18 to 36, 3 turnovers, no touchdowns. He was still better than Geno was, and the offense looked better than Geno. So you play Vick the next couple weeks. Vick's a guy who's going to be auditioning for the chance to play somewhere else, or maybe here next year. But it's hard to even see that. Depending on what happens. Does Vick go in and get hurt after 3 games? We go back to Geno. Is Vick inconsistent enough where they're going to go to Geno anyway, or can Vick kind of string together 4 or 5 good performances and just finish the season out. I'm not really sure. We haven't seen him with a full week of practice. He, starts on the road against a good Kansas City team.
Yeah.
Place to play. So I go in with kind of tempered expectations. I think Vick will take the approach towards being a starter, probably different than being a backup. And, I think that they'll have a professional offense for the bulk of the time, and they'll move the ball. But there's going to be a lot of turnovers, and there's going to be frustrating plays. And if Vick takes the hits like he did last week, he's going to get hurt. Like he's an old guy, not a big guy, and he's always banged up. So I have pretty tempered expectations. I think Vick will probably end up starting somewhere between 3 in the next 5 games. I think there'll be 1 or 2 encouraging performances in there, but I think he'll probably get banged up at some point. And before the end of the season, Geno will be back under center just for an evaluation standpoint. Connor, what are you thinking with Vick kind of the rest of the year and then going forward for 2015?
Yeah, I definitely thought it was tough to watch on Sunday, but he definitely brings a spark to the team. Obviously, he can command an offense a lot better than at least Geno Smith has shown so far. And this is a guy that I know for a fact has just not really been involved in practice because the bottom line is he was never given a chance to start. So he just didn't. He had a careless attitude, and now the game plan will be tailored around him for the week. I think he'll be okay. I'm obviously not expecting much. The biggest thing that scares me this week is that the Chiefs have 2 of the best edge rushers in the league. And right now, that's who the Jets struggle against. Von Miller put on a clinic against the Jets a couple weeks ago. And I'm sure Justin Houston and Tamba Ali and maybe even a sprinkle in of D Ford will do the same thing in Kansas City. So, I mean, Vick's going to have to step up in the pocket, run a lot of lanes between the guard and the center. He's not going to be able to bounce around outside from those guys because you can't really get away from those guys. So, and for the rest of the season, it's tough to watch because you don't really know what you're watching. To just tell a Jets fan, you want to see a guy like Vick bring out the best in the other players. You want to see if Harvin's here to stay next year. You want to see Jason Morrow continue to have maybe a couple more 6 to 10 catch games. Who, has been a really nice, a nice addition for the Jets. Eric Decker involved in the offense. Jeremy Curley earning that extension. You want to see players like that involved. They're going to run the ball a lot just so Vick doesn't get killed again. And when he comes in, they're not going to be down a ton of points either, which is the biggest bright side. At least he can maybe control the clock a little bit if he could just hold on to the ball.
Dalbin, thoughts on Vick?
Well, wouldn't it be the complete Jets thing to do if he wins the next 2 games and they go into the bye 3-7 and he just completely throws everything out of whack? I think he's going to be fine. It's just, like Connor said, Kansas City's not a bad team. They're actually a very underrated team in the AFC. I feel like a lot of people are forgetting that this is that same team that housed New England on Monday night, played Denver really tough, beat San Diego. Like, this is a very good team.
Secondary.
Yeah, very good secondary, very good linebackers. Bob Sutton's done an amazing job with that defense. So I think they're a very underrated team. What they'll be able to do is stop Jamal Charles, right? Like, because they kind of bounced back a little bit last week in terms of stopping the run, but there was no Fred Jackson or C.J. Spiller. So I wonder if Vick is competitive, because it's also very different. Whereas the Vick had the Jets down 7 going into the half, and this was despite the 4 turnovers and whatever the case may be. I think with him, I think it's different because he has a chance now to seize this job and again play well enough that he's the starter the rest of the way, and then he can come back and be the starter here next year. I do think, like Connor said, he hasn't taken the reps seriously. He was the only one that was honest from the jump, where he said, this isn't really a competition. It's Geno's job to lose. I'm not going to get to play. He was the only one that was honest about it. But I think it's going to be different. I think he's going to be motivated. And like Connor said, you want somebody that the players, you could tell they didn't believe in Geno after the first interception. You could tell that they were turned off from jump. And then Vick got in there and you saw a spark. You saw them playing a little bit harder. And I think they're going to see that I think they're going to do that with Vick. Mo Wilkerson, even today, when they asked him about Geno, he's like, I'm not a talent evaluator. And I thought that was very telling. So I think Vick is playing for a job here next year or elsewhere. Because he could be that stopgap if Rex comes back and then they draft a guy in the 2nd or 3rd round to sit behind Vick.
Yeah, I think that was all really good points, and particularly using Vick as an evaluation tool for the rest of the offense, getting a clearer picture of what Harvin could do here, helping Amara continue to develop, on pace for 64 catches, by the way. Which
That's right.
So considering this offense, and same thing with Decker and Curley and everybody else, who's going to be working around. I certainly wouldn't say it's outside of the realm of possibility for Vick to be considered the veteran stopgap if Rex is brought back, if the coach is fired, if even the GM is fired. And I'm someone who's adamantly said he won't be fired, but if you go 2-14 or 1-15, everything's on the table. That includes GM. Should include everybody, starting with Harry Bradway and the entire scouting department. But we'll see. A lot of it's going to depend on who's the coordinator, who's the quarterback coach, who's the head coach. As we kind of look towards other outside options, so the names that are popular, right? You look to Cleveland. There's Hoyer and Manziel, right? So Hoyer's he's been good. He's been a little inconsistent at times, but he's been a steady veteran. Is Cleveland going to pay him? Is another team going to pay him? How much are you willing to invest in a guy like that? Definitely an interesting situation to keep an eye on, because if Hoyer plays really well the rest of the year and Cleveland goes 9-7, are they going to hang on to Manziel? Are they going to look to try to move him? It's like a crazy thing to even think about, but you look at places that have two quarterbacks, and you look at who's going to be a free agent. Sam Bradford, talented enough guy to be the top pick in the draft, but can he stay healthy? You're going to sign Bradford. Mm-hmm. Was laying out in the preseason, and you're right back to where you started. Kyle Orton, is Buffalo just going to bring Orton back because they don't have a quarterback either? I don't think they're going to start Manuel again next year. So are you going to be able to get him? Matt Moore's a guy we talked about a lot a few years ago when he was a free agent. He just never really showed any interest, and Moore never really explored the market. He seemed really content just to kind of stay and be a backup. He is a guy I think who's been all right in limited action and could probably be okay. But not a lot of exciting options. I think if you were going the veteran route and if Rex is back or you have a defensive-minded guy, Hoyer would kind of sound like a best-case scenario. Bradford or Oregon are kind of reasonable fallbacks. But I don't know. Am I missing someone, Connor? Let me know. I gotta go run and get my charger, so run with it.
I had to do the same thing. My laptop was about to die.
That's why I use my phone, man.
Yeah, good move, dude. Wait on that iPhone 6 still.
I'm waiting for mine too, yeah.
The quarterback market, it's just atrocious when you look at it. People say, why do these guys get paid so much? Because there's only 12 to 15 people in the world that can do that job.
It's true.
It's not rocket science. And I don't know. It's a really tough situation for the Jets. And I hate to say it, but the best quarterback in the draft is Jameis Winston, and that's the bottom line. And is that a guy that can succeed in this environment? I don't know. I don't think so. Yeah. I think he could play well. I don't think he could sustain a career here well, at least under Rex Ryan in this regime. You better have a coaching staff. And like Joe said, if you can find a way to bring in a Harbaugh here, then you could draft whatever quarterback you want, and I'm willing to sit back and watch what happens because I'll trust his assessment, his ability to develop a guy. People don't realize what Colin Kaepernick was at Nevada, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he ran that pistol offense at Nevada.
Yep.
And it honestly, he wasn't half the player. He was a complete project. So if they want to go for a guy like Mariota, who obviously I'm just terrified of.
Right.
It shows all the talent in the world, but yeah, it's tough. And like you said, it's a matter of finding that stopgap option, whether that's Michael Vick. I know me and you both don't think so, and I know a lot of people think so. Yeah, the guy can't hold on to the ball right now, and there's just not a lot out there, and that's the bottom line.
Well, somebody that I would consider actually is Chad Henne, because it's clear that Bortles is the guy in Jacksonville going forward, and Henne's shown that he can play quarterback in this league, and so you kind of wonder if he's the guy to form that stopgap until your young guy is ready. And I also, I kind of want to say this. I don't want to completely just get away from Geno Smith because Nick Foles lost out to Mike Vick, and he turned out just fine when Vick got hurt and he came back in. So it's not out of the realm of possibility to think that maybe a guy like Chad Henne comes in and him and Geno compete. That's something that can still happen. I know you're not okay with that, Joe, but it's something that can happen. I think Chad Henne's a guy that some teams will probably kick the tires on. Also, and it sucks because I would have hated if they would have signed him this offseason. Josh McCown, I doubt he's back in Tampa. Glennon's taking that job. So I doubt he's back in Tampa, but he's a guy that was propped up by Matt Forte, Brandon Marshall, and Alshon Jeffrey. So I don't know if I'd want him here. And I'm like you. I'm terrified of Jameis Winston just because of the simple fact that here in New York, I can't see the New York media being as kind to him as they've been to Geno, no pun intended. The only way that it'll work is if they get Jim Harbaugh, because Harbaugh tends to insulate all that noise. But the guy that I had said that I would really like, and this is just more veering off into coaches, is Greg Roman, because Roman's had a hand in developing Colin Kaepernick. So if you're going to get a guy that has learned under Harbaugh how to insulate the noise. So you get him and you draft Winston, then I can see it. But the only way that this works is if Rex is gone. So, but Chad Henne would be the guy that I would go for in the offseason.
Yeah, this team brought back Rex and drafted Jameis Winston. I mean, that might be the way for me to shut this website down because that would be
that would be the end.
That would be
yeah.
We'd be turn on. I don't even know. I pick a random. Like
turn on the chaos.
Something. Pick a different team. I mean, is there any like backup quarterbacks on other teams that we're overlooking that could be potential trade targets? I'm trying to cycle through in my head. Like, who's the Saints backup? Who's the Falcons backup? Like,
So the guy that I would think, Chase Daniel, right, out in Kansas City, because he's the guy that, because I remember when Kansas City traded for him, I was like, wow, he learned under Breeze, he learned under Pete Carmichael, he learned under Joe Lombardi, and he played well in spurts, like relieving Breeze, and like when the Saints had the division clinch and he started a couple games. So he's a guy that you could kind of look at that I think might be, like, you might be able to have him just because Alex Smith just signed that mega deal. Matt Schaub, and I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but Matt Schaub for 5 years was one of the top, like Connor said, top 12 or 15 guys, like, because there's only 15 guys that can play quarterback in this league. He was one of them, and then he imploded in Houston, and then got beat out. Carr started now. Schaub is another guy that I would look at. In Atlanta, who's Matt Ryan's backup?
If we don't know, probably.
Exactly. He's probably not good at all. And it's funny, the one backup might be Mark Sanchez in Philadelphia because they also drafted Barkley. So like you kind of wonder like if a year away, but I'd lose my mind if Sanchez came back. But Chase Daniels a name that I would watch if like a new coach comes in, or even if like because he's a veteran now, he's been in the league now 3-4 seasons. Like I think he'd be a guy that you could see the Jets taking a flyer on, and he wouldn't cost that much.
Connor, maybe Jake Locker, Matt Castle, Christian Ponder. I'm not saying these are good suggestions. I'm just throwing out
those
names.
are the guys you're talking about. Yeah. By the way, T.J. Yates is Matt Ryan's backup.
Okay.
The immortal.
Yeah.
He did win
He did win a playoff game. He beat Cincinnati.
Hey, Brock Osweiler in Denver, just waiting to get his turn, man. Former second-round pick, sitting behind Manning for a couple of years.
6'8".
So sad that we're
And he could block field goals, maybe.
Yeah.
So sad.
The quarterback situation's just a mess. I'll tell you right now, though, I think this offseason is going to be the craziest NFL offseason in quite some time.
I agree.
Just looking at things early. I mean, you don't know what the hell could happen. You could see a guy like RG3 traded. You could see a guy like Sam Bradford going to a different team. The Brian Hoyer, Johnny Manziel thing is dynamic because Hoyer, if he keeps up his play, he doesn't want Manziel on that team for obvious reasons.
It's like a
Breeze Rivers, yeah. A guy you might also want to watch too is Tannehill too, because like Grandpa Joe wasn't so committed to him early on in the season, and I mean the Dolphins right now are they're a team that's kind of very, very inconsistent up and down. But I'd watch for Tannehill too because there might be a coaching change and Tannehill may not be the new coach's guy, so I'd watch him as well.
And they have Dan Marino's a consultant there.
Yeah.
He doesn't like Tannehill.
Right. Yeah. So I'd watch out for him too. And Tannehill's a guy who, I mean, he's got talent. He choked towards the end of last season, cost his team a playoff spot, but he's got talent. I'd watch him too.
It's just sad this is what it's come down to with the Jets. That we are speculating the departures of Ryan Tannehill, Brian Hoyer, RG3 on one leg, and Chase Daniel.
We're potentially getting excited about like a Chase Daniel, Geno Smith, Mike Vick quarterback battle. Quarterback royale.
Yeah, it's gotten real bad in Jets land.
So I guess in conclusion, because again it's 8:40 on a Tuesday night, and I'm in this room that looks like a jail cell, which is very similar to a Jets fan right now. I'm running.
I thought you were in front of a green screen. I'm like, did Joe splurge for the green screen?
I guess 8 games left. What is the realistic best case scenario? For me, it's like I don't know, because you could go one route and say Mike Vick plays like really well the next 8 games. The Jets go 4-4. They finish 5-11. And maybe they bring back Vick as a stopgap option. Is that really a great thing? I don't know. I mean, it's going to hurt their draft pick. I don't know if it can really be a stopgap option. Depends on the coaches, so the offensive coordinator. Do you want them, Vick plays the next 4 games, then when we see Geno play the last 4 games and he plays a little better so he can at least be in the competition for 2015? I don't know. Are we just wasting time with Geno? Is he a lost cause? So the answer is, I really don't know. I'd like to see them beat New England and Miami as like a spoiler and not lose to Buffalo by 20 again like they do every year because it drives me crazy. And again, one more time, the Jets have lost since the beginning of 2011, 12 games by 20 points or more, and 10 additional games by 10 points or more. That's 22 out of your 33 losses, 20 point in double digits. So no blowouts, and maybe not a divisional opponent or two. And let's see a functional offense. Let's at least get to see Harvin do some things, Decker do some things, and tomorrow get better. Whatever quarterback facilitates that, more power to you. Connor, for the rest of the season, any hopes? What do you want to say?
Everyone stay healthy. That's number one. I don't want to see like a Sheldon Richardson like injury or like something that just sets the team back going into next year. But besides the obvious, I really hope the team looks half decent in the offense with Mike Vick, and not because of to prove a point or the Mike Vick this, Mike Vick that. I want to see the rest of the guys going forward, and I want Idzik going into the offseason to go, okay, this is what we know we have with a quarterback that's been under center and can recognize a couple pre-snap reads and get feed the guys the ball. Lock in Amaro at tight end, Decker, and I don't know what to say about Harvin. That's going to be a really interesting decision, but I just want them to at least be able to solidify a plan going into the offseason because we know we have holes in the secondary. The interior offensive line has to be upgraded. There's no excuses for either of those next year to look the same. But the bottom line is you want to see what you thought you had looking good actually play good. And that's Chris Ivory getting 100 yards a game, which we know he's capable of, but can they block for him on the edges? And you want to see the wide receivers like Decker maybe have 100 yards catching, Curley have 6 to 8 catches a couple of games, Amaro get in the end zone. Run a competent offense. Have Marty Mornhinweg actually show that he'll send a running back as a check down out, as a safety valve for the quarterback when these edge rushers are getting past the tackles so fast. I rewatched the Titans game today, and they did it for Mettenberger every time. And when his first read wasn't open, since he's a rookie quarterback, he'd find McCluster or another running back across the middle. And the Jets don't do that for Geno Smith. They don't do it for anybody. It's absurd. It's terrible coaching. All I want to see is know who's in, know who's out, figure it out in the next 8 games, and stop beating around the bush with the bullshit 20-minute soliloquy press conference that nobody really cares about anyway. Just go into the offseason and have a plan.
Dalbin.
All right. This is like the parting shots portion of the show, right? No, I agree with Connor. So best case scenario, right? Because I have a bunch of bets with people on Twitter. So best case scenario is Mike Vick leads us to a 9-7 record, and we sneak into the playoffs. That is the best bet, right? Because if that happens, Twitter will burn at the fact that Mike Vick is going back to the playoffs.
I respect that.
Yeah, so that's the best case scenario for me personally. And you'll see in my article tomorrow, cheap plug on Idzik's, like I graded him after 24 games, right? And one of the things is that this is what Mike Vick was brought in to do, right? Is for when Geno struggles to do this before the season spirals out of control. Some will say that he should have been brought in before the New England game, but Geno played well, so I get it, right? So I want to see the Jets win. It feels like forever since this team won. It
has been forever,
right? And you can hear the frustration in Sheldon's voice and Mo Wilkerson's voice. They're frustrated with not winning, and so I want to see them win. I know they're going to play for Rex Ryan. They're going to play hard for Rex. That's fine. I love Rex for giving us 2 great years. But if he's going to go out, then go out the way that you came in. Go out not this meek, quiet company man, Rex. No, go out and say, you know what? We're going to punch everybody in the mouth. We're going to run it with Ivory 30 times. We're going to try, because you have to do that in order to keep Vick upright. Like, you're going to have to do that. Run it with Ivory. Get Ivory to over 1,000. Use Harvin as a receiver, not these jet sweeps or fake end around stuff. He's a very good receiver. Use him on slants. Use him on hitch and goes. I agree with Con about the linemen. Like, I think Willie Colon is gone. I think Brick might be gone. And we talked about that over the summer in one of the podcasts, and we kind of had said, like, oh, there's no, we kind of said that maybe there's not a chance, but I think Brick is playing his way off the team next year. So you kind of want to see that. No injuries to Mo Wilkerson because you don't want to see that to your franchise player. The continued development of Demario Davis. Darren Walls has been the team's best corner, and Connor broke down actually hit Darren Walls' best play of his career, and I thought it was a phenomenal breakdown because he's developed under Rex, and so I know we can say like and yes he has his faults, but there's some guys that have developed under him. So I'd like to see those guys get more playing time. Calvin Pryor's been better, so I'd like to see that, but I want them to win. I want to see them win because I think that you can build on this for the next coach if you're bringing in a new coach, because this team is way more talented than the team Idzik inherited. And I'm like you, Joe. I'm sick and tired of hearing that there's not enough talent to win, that they don't have any good players. A lot of teams would kill to have Percy Harvin, Eric Decker, Jeremy Curley, Chris Ivory, and Jason Morrow as their weapons. A lot of teams would kill that. It all comes down to the quarterback. And it always does. Andrew Luck covers up a lot of weaknesses in Indianapolis. Grigson's done a terrible job building that team, but Andrew Luck covers it up. You need a quarterback. If it's Mike Vick, which again, Connor and I don't think it will be, but if it is, go 9-7. Lead us to the playoffs. Lose to Denver in the AFC title game. Go for it. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, I just win a game. I like to do a podcast after a win. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, one more thing. I want to see you get 8 to 10 touches a game from here on out.
Oh?
Bilal Powell.
Okay.
Yeah.
No doubt. No more Chris Johnson. That's not it's time to cut the cord on that.
I think he's and you know what, we said it a couple weeks ago when the comments kind of started to trickle like, oh, it's not time to talk to Marty yet. I'm like, oh, okay, this is gonna come. I know what's about to happen. And then sure enough, well, I'm not even in the game, so I don't know. What do you say? It's time for him to go.
I don't even be in the game.
Yeah, I don't even be in the game. Get out of here. You gotta go.
It's gotta be. Yeah. So. Just win a game. I don't know if it's going to happen this week. I don't know if it's going to happen at the away game against
the away game in New Jersey.
Literally 90% Steelers fans. I'm not exaggerating that number. It was 90% Steelers fans last year, and the team was 4-3. And it was 1-8. So win a game. Maybe I'd like to see him beat New England at home. One of Rex's last games potentially. That'd be a nice way to go out if it is. So yeah. That's all I could ask for. I'd like to do a podcast after a win. I've only done like one podcast after a win in my life now.
It's true. It's true.
And I got to go home and eat because it's late, and I'm stuck in this jail cell down there. So, guys, thanks for joining tonight, and we'll see you out there. We'll have, I know, slower content today, just wrapping up a longer article. We'll have about 4 new ones out tomorrow, so stay with us.
Yep. TOJ.